right, we're going to talk about the archetype, if you will, of health from a self-care perspective as always. Now, you really have to understand that health has always been the same thing no matter what time period it's ever been in. However, there is a social pressure that creates health based on the era. So we'd say in the Industrial Revolution, there was a certain pressure on all people. That pressure then created people to do things a specific way. Doing things that specific way, which is always not sustainable, then has a cost to the human body. The human body then needs aid to help it stay healthy because we kind of violated balance in the first place, and therefore we're burning out some resource in the individual. So this might be seen in different calls to heal that generation or that time period. So you might go from the original kind of origin of health, which was just sanitization, lots of people dying on the battlefield, this kind of thing. We have to be sanitary to keep life going. Therefore, the industry of being sanitary kind of kicks off. We have the same thing, I believe, with the psychological area. The mid 20th century psychologists, there we go. A huge influx of them. Why? There must have been some kind of mental strain based on how people were doing things or what happened previous to that era. We have, in different cultures, we have the cultivation of Zen. This again is a kind of balancing to what life was like previous this thing. So we always have a kind of call to action for the balancing effect that we would associate with being healthy. In our era, it's generally going to, previous this one, it was going to be being physical, being active, moving your body, and solving things by being active. So we have the influx of fitness industry style things. We have the Tabata style stuff, the hits, the hurts, the cycling, the yoga, all these things come in to try to help the pressures placed on the individuals. It's good to know that we are dealing with several health challenges that have been swept under the rug of previous eras, and now we're all addressing those things now because we cannot repress them anymore as a society. So we're needing the yoga, we're needing the high intensity stuff, we're needing the nature walks, we're needing the healing style things more now because we have to deal with the pressure of past things. Now, that being said, this era had its challenge. What is this? We all know it as COVID. COVID happens. Now, how did the population deal with COVID? Not very well, in one sense. In the other sense, it kind of showed the underside to what we were doing before and really highlighted the fact that how we were working, how we were doing things was not balanced. Therefore, when such a challenge hits us, people are disoriented, destabilized, and health is hampered. So we then have to look at this a little bit more straightforward. Can we use things that were used in the past now for this new challenge? We cannot, actually. The social era has cleared, and therefore we have a different dynamic working in lifestyle. So the pressure that's placed on us in this era is different than all other eras. Therefore, we need a medicine, if you will, a style of acting towards balancing the human being that solves in this container that we're all in. This is not going to be similar to the other things in the sense of how we understand its use. However, the principle of health, like I said, has always been the same. I think now we cannot use any more Band-Aid solutions. We can't be swinging the pendulum this way and back this way just to deal with the compensation of not being balanced in the first place. This is the era, I've said many times, of emotional health. Therefore, we need to get this a lot more balanced. And to do so, we will need something that is kind of more to the root, more to the heart, more to the holism of health. Therefore, giving a greater restoration to past pressures and current pressures. And this will be, you guessed it, self-care in nature. Why? Because self-care is all about restoring the human being. And to restore the human being, they must be more in contact with their natures, i.e. themselves. And this is going to have three different faces, if you will. And we know them as mental, emotional, and physical health. We will need all these pieces put together to really address the challenges that we're currently dealing with if we are to restabilize our way of doing health. However, are there barriers to this way of doing that? Tremendous amounts of barriers. I've been doing the self-care thing for a while, and barrier after barrier after barrier are all hit. This, I believe, is from the, I would say, the standpoint of a tree being too tall to see the grass, right? So everybody's dealing with challenges at a very high level, but they're doing with health from a standpoint of a past social era, right? So they're kind of missing it. They're looking for Elvis when the Beatles are coming up, as my client likes to put it. So this is going to be a limitation to how quickly we can solve, help, and aid people in their restoration of their own personal health. Now, this is just a quick look at the kind of archetypal structure of health, and that it has never changed. However, we have bent to the will of life challenges and industry, therefore warping ourselves out of shape and needing to be balanced back out. My suggestion is that we don't just put a Band-Aid solution back on this one. In fact, we cannot. So that means it must be corrected. And so we must pursue something greater than what was currently, or what's currently being used. Not in the sense that everything else is not as good, but in the sense that to deal with this kind of specific pressure, we need something restoring. And the therapies we have so thus far are more reactive or balancing, but not completely restorative. And that is the unique trait of self-care. Thank you for listening. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense when we're talking about the archetype of health based on self-care perspective.